The wind was already dying as Elias McCrae crested the final ridge. He sat slouched in the saddle, shoulders stiff, jaw dust-caked, the brittle fabric of his coat pulled high against his jaw. A cold dusk had settled across the land. In the distance, the chimney of his cabin smoked thinly, trailing into a sky bruised purple and orange. Home, he didn't hurry. Not at first. The silence of the land was unnatural, as if the forest itself held its breath. No crickets, no woodpecker, not even the rasp of the wind through pine, his Mari grunted. Elias gave her a squeeze. They descended slowly, boots hit the mud minutes later. He led her the final stretch down the overgrown path. 6 months on the rail lines, 6 months of black nails, aching joints, and eyes never able to rest. And every night, in the bunkhouse with men that never smiled, he'd stared at the crumpled paper he kept in his coat, a drawing of 3 stick figures under a sun. One held a flower. One had wild orange hair. The last wore a hat. He stepped up to the porch. The door was open, not just unlocked. Open. Elias froze. The stillness screamed louder than any alarm bell. He unholstered the rusted revolver from under his coat and stepped inside with mud-caked boots creaking on old pine. The fire in the hearth was cold. A cup sat shattered on the floor. A rag doll lay face down beside the hearth, and then he heard it, a child scream, high, piercing, raw with panic. Lucy, he lunged through the cabin, past the kitchen table and coat hooks, past the broken shutter that flapped against the far wall, in the back room. Moonlight bled through the cracked glass window. Lucy was there, his daughter curled up on the floor, screaming into a woman's lap. Not just any woman, a soldier, torn Union blues. Blood along the waist, her side soaked crimson, and her fingers trembling against the child's temple, stroking her hair as if it would stop the world from spinning. Get away from her! Elias raised the revolver. The soldier didn't flinch. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on Lucy's, and Lucy, God help him, was holding on to the soldier's coat as if it were the last thing keeping her from falling. She's not hurt, the woman whispered. Not in body. Elias moved forward slowly, gun still raised. Get your hands off my daughter. Now. That was when she finally turned her face toward him. One eye was swollen, half closed from a recent bruise. Her lips were cracked. She had no weapon. Just, a leather satchel beside her boot, half open, and she said his name, Elias McCrae. He nearly dropped the gun. How do you know me? The soldier winced as she moved, pressing one hand to the blood on her side. Lucy had stopped screaming but clung to her all the same, burying her face in the woman's chest, sobbing like she'd been holding it back for days. I was stationed west of Pine Ridge, the woman rasped. When I saw her alone, barefoot, screaming by the fence, I thought she was being hunted. Elias stepped forward. His voice was lower now, quieter. She never leaves the yard. Not ever. Where were you? 15 miles off, the woman said. She was running toward the road. That's when Elias noticed the dried blood on his daughter's feet. He dropped to his knees. Revolver forgotten. Lucy's arms flew out toward him. He wrapped her into his chest, scooping her up with a strength that came from pure terror. From the horror of a father seeing what shouldn't be possible. It's all right, baby. I'm here. I'm home now. I got you. The soldier slumped against the wall, breath hitching. I didn't take her. I just followed her scream. Elias turned, cradling Lucy in his arms. She was muttering now, half asleep in his grip. Her cheek against his collar, just one word. Over and over, fire, dire. He looked at the woman. Was there a fire? Her silence was answer enough. She nodded, eyes distant. There was more than fire, she said. There were men. Outside, the wind stirred, a low howl. Somewhere down the trail, the Murray whinnied nervously. Elias moved toward the window and looked out. Tracks, 3 of them. Deep boot prints in the frost, circling the house, fresh. He turned sharply. The soldier was already watching him. They were here before you. Asterisk, she reached for the satchel slowly. Opened it, asterisk pulled. Something out, asterisk a badge. Not from any sheriff? Asterisk from the Union Provost? Military police? Elias stared at it, asterisk. And then she said the words that turned his world into ash. Asterisk. I wasn't just stationed at Pine Ridge. I was sent here to find a man who worked for Ashridge. Mining company, she looked at him. You? Elias's breath caught. I'm not, he stammered. I'm not part of anything anymore. I just drive rail. Her eyes softened, but her voice didn't. I don't think you know what you helped build. He backed away. Lucy stirred in his arms, whispering in her sleep. Asterisk, the soldier shifted. Blood slid down her fingers. Asterisk, Elias turned toward the hearth, lit the fire again with shaking hands. The flames caught slow. Silence returned. Heavy, thick. The soldier looked at the flickering light. Her voice came so soft it could have been a prayer. Asterisk, she kept whispering your name in her sleep. So I brought her home. Elias stood, frozen, trying to swallow the truth rising in his throat like smoke. What did they do to her? Asterisk, she didn't answer, only closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the wall, as if trying to forget something no one should ever remember. Asterisk. And then she whispered the sentence that shattered him. Asterisk, she saw what no child should ever see. And she ran ... because she thought you were already dead. Outside, the wind died completely. Inside, a single log cracked in the fire. Asterisk and Elias McCrae stood between a wounded soldier, a haunted daughter, and a past that had finally come home. Asterisk. Snow had started to fall before midnight. Asterisk, it was the kind that didn't rush, just drifted, quiet and ghost-like, over the pine branches and onto the worn trail below. The sky had no stars. The trees whispered only when the wind dared to return. Asterisk, Elias led the Mare through the dark. Asterisk, Lucy lay slumped against his chest, swaddled in both their coats. Her breath fogged against his neck. He could feel her heartbeat, too fast, too wild. Like a bird that had just escaped a cage but hadn't figured out where the sky ended. Asterisk, the soldier rode behind, silent, swaying in the saddle like she could fall at any moment. She never once asked where they were going, because she already knew. Asterisk, they reached the ravine before dawn, a place Elias used to trap game when the winters turned lean. Long ago, when he still believed his life could be repaired one piece at a time. Asterisk, he built the fire under the shadow of a granite bluff, half concealed by brush and the shape of the land. He didn't speak. Neither did she. Asterisk, only Lucy, half asleep, muttered something as he laid her gently onto a bed of wool. Asterisk, don't let them take her. She's nice. She sings when the fire's loud. Elias brushed the hair from her eyes. The soldier sat nearby, slumped with her back against the log. One hand pressed to her side, blood dried black along her ribs. Asterisk, you need that looked at? He said. Asterisk, I've had worse. Asterisk, that doesn't mean you should die from this. She didn't answer. The fire cracked. Asterisk, Elias reached for his satchel, unwrapped a small tin and a half-burned roll of thread. With careful hands he took the soldier's coat aside. The wound was ugly, torn along the edge like it had caught on metal. She get you? He asked, meaning Lucy. Asterisk, no, fence wire. I climbed it after she ran. Asterisk, he worked in silence. The needle trembled between his fingers. She winced only once, when the thread pulled too tight. You've done this before, she said. A few times. Asterisk, he didn't say when or who for. Or what war? Asterisk, the fire threw light across her face. It made the bruises stand out, made the shadows in her eyes deeper. Name's May, she said after a long moment. I know. She looked up. Elias kept stitching. Asterisk, I saw your papers. Back at the cabin, you had a badge. You knew my name. Asterisk, she nodded. Said nothing more, but the silence between them changed. Not warm. Not yet, but less sharp. Asterisk, later, as the fire burned down to low embers, Lucy stirred again. She reached out, not for Elias, but for May. Her small fingers curled into the edge of May's sleeve. Asterisk, May looked down. Startled. Asterisk double quotes. She. She thinks you're her mother, Elias whispered. She's wrong, May whispered back. I know. She doesn't. May swallowed hard. The child's breath slowed again, safe in that space between them. Elias saw May's fingers twitch hesitating, then finally settle over Lucy's small hand. Elias looked away. He stood and walked toward the edge of the camp. Asterisk snow fell softer now. The forest had gone still. Too still? Asterisk, he scanned the tree. Lying, his breath ghosting in the cold. Then he saw it, a shape, near the trees. Gone in a blink, he turned, walked back to the fire. Someone's following, he said. They were near the cabin. They're still near now. May's eyes sharpened instantly. She reached for her satchel. Opened it, pulled something out wrapped in oilskin. A notebook. She handed it to him. What is it? Elias asterisk, she. Nodded for him to open it. He did. Ledgers, names, payments, orders, a list of deliveries from Ashridge Mining Company to Union garrisons, but not for rail. Not for tools, for fire, for shells, for poison. Asterisk, you carried these ledgers across the frontier? Elias whispered. Asterisk, I stole them. He flipped pages. There it was, his name, E. McCrae, wagon freight. East Ridgeline, cleared under. Watch of Colj Whitlock. His throat dried. I didn't know what I was hauling. Asterisk, you never asked? He looked at her, firelight in his eyes. Would it have mattered if I did? That shut her up. Elias stared down at the name beneath his. Another signature. Asterisk, Whitlock still owns the mine. May nodded. He's not just an owner now. He's trying to buy the county seat. Clean his hands with paper. Asterisk, Elias laughed. Bitterly, he won't, he can't. Asterisk, he already did. Asterisk, she reached into the satchel again. Pulled out a torn piece of paper, a drawing, 3 figures. A sun. A flower. One figure held a badge. The other held a torch. Elias felt the earth tilt beneath him. He took the page slowly. Lucy's name was in the corner. She'd drawn it. Asterisk, Asterisk, she saw what they did to me, saw them. Beat me when I found the ledgers. She was in the warehouse. Hiding. I didn't know until I heard her scream. May's voice cracked. I killed one of them, the other ran. But she ran too. I tracked her all the way here. Elias stared at the drawing, his thumb shaking. She knew they were after you. She thought she'd lead them away. Asterisk, the soldier's voice was barely breath now. Asterisk, she thought she was protecting you. Elias didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. He looked at the fire. Then at Lucy, then back at the drawing. The torch in the second figure's hand was not a torch. Asterisk, it was a match. He turned to May. What are you going to do with all this? Asterisk, take it to the circuit court if I make it. Bring Whitlock down. Expose what was done? Asterisk, they'll kill you before you get past the border. Asterisk, I know. Elias looked at her, long and hard. Then he handed the ledger back. No. He said. She frowned. You'll never make it. Asterisk. He looked at the child, then at the frozen sky. I'll take you. May blinked. You don't even know me. Asterisk, I don't need to. He knelt beside the fire. Because my daughter already chose to trust you. And if I ever want her to trust me again, I'll need to earn it back. He stoked the fire, wrapped another blanket around Lucy. Behind them, the forest groaned with wind again, but the flames stayed steady. In that moment, nothing more was said. Asterisk, but everything had changed. Ashridge looked different in fog. Asterisk, the hills, the garrison ruins. The old bell tower by the chapel, all faded outlines beneath a curtain of drifting white. Horses stamped in the cold outside the tavern. Lamplight flickered behind shutters. And boots scraped across old wood porches with slow suspicion. Asterisk, Elias led the mare down the slope, Lucy asleep against his chest again. May sat behind, her head bowed under a wide-brimmed hat he'd found at an abandoned post station. Enough to hide her bruised face. She wore a faded wool shawl, blood long dried beneath. Asterisk, they passed the blacksmith shop first, then the general store. Then the schoolhouse with chalk still on the board. Trust is the root of peace. Asterisk, the silence of the town wasn't just from fog. It was the kind of silence that came from guilt, and something waiting, asterisk, the bell rang in the chapel tower once. Then twice, a funeral. Elias's gut turned. He knew whose name would be on the pine coffin, the man he'd shot in the dark. Of war, asterisk, back then, he'd chosen survival. But here, now, the son of that man was the sheriff. The same man who'd hired Elias 6 months earlier to run wagons for the mine, asterisk, and now that mine had a secret bleeding at its roots. Asterisk, they tied the mare outside the boarding house and walked. In through the rear alley, through the old kitchen, asterisk, they didn't speak. Didn't have to, asterisk, May handed the ledger to Elias in the stairwell. You don't have to go through with this, asterisk, I know. Asterisk, she come after you, asterisk, I know. He turned to her. You still have the badge? Asterisk, she handed it over. He pinned it under his coat, and then he walked into the lion's den. The old courthouse doubled as a mining office now, cleaned up, with new floors and fresh ink pots, but the same rotted soul beneath. And behind the desk sat the man himself, Colonel Whitlock. Clean suit, fresh shave, not a speck of dust on his boots. The air behind him reeked of whiskey and fire oil. He looked up, smirking like a banker, asterisk, well, I'll be damned. Elias McCrae. You're back early. Elias laid the ledger on the desk, opened to the page with Whitlock's signature, to the lists of ammunition, corpses, payoffs, to the lies. The colonel's jaw twitched. His eyes didn't move, asterisk. Where'd you get this? Asterisk. You know where? Asterisk. Whitlock closed the book with quiet hands. Looked up, asterisk. Where's the girl? Elias didn't answer. She took something from me, the colonel said softly. She ran, you helped her. Elias stared him down. She didn't run because of what she took. She ran because of what you did. Asterisk. The colonel stood. Moved around the desk, slowly, carefully, not a man rushing. Asterisk. You've worked for me, Elias. Hauled freight. Trusted my word. Are you saying you didn't enjoy the money? Asterisk. I didn't know what it was for. Whitlock smiled. Then you were paid to be stupid, which I suppose is still honest work. Elias didn't blink. I'm taking this to the circuit judge. Asterisk. You won't make it out of town? Asterisk. You'll try and stop me? Asterisk. I won't have to. The door burst open. Sheriff Clay, the colonel's son, stepped in, gun drawn. But May was already behind him. Asterisk. He didn't see her until the muzzle kissed his temple. Asterisk. I wouldn't, she whispered. He froze. Whitlock didn't asterisk his. Hand went for the desk drawer. Elias fired first. The sound cracked like thunder in a bottle. Asterisk. The colonel fell sideways, blood painting the ledger red. Clay screamed and lunged, not at May, but at Elias. They hit the desk hard, papers flying. Wood cracked. Fists blurred. May stepped back, dragging Lucy into the hall as townsfolk shouted outside. Asterisk. Elias shoved Clay against the wall, fist connecting with jawbone, teeth scattering across the floor. But Clay was younger, meaner, and full of legacy hate. He pulled a knife. Elias ducked. The blade slashed coat. Not flesh. Asterisk. The next punch knocked Elias to one knee, and then Lucy screamed. Sound like the one she'd made that night. Sharp, frantic, a child's scream with the force of memory behind it. Asterisk. Elias looked up. Asterisk saw the knife in Clay's hand. May moved. Faster than any words. Asterisk. She slammed into Clay, taking the blade into her own shoulder. The two fell in a heap. Elias scrambled forward, gun in hand, but Clay was already crawling toward the exit. Bloodied, breath ragged, he fled into the fog. Elias turned to May. Asterisk. She was bleeding, eyes wide, face pale. Asterisk. You always this dramatic? She rasped. He grinned, despite the horror. I'm not the one diving on blades. Asterisk. Behind them, the townsfolk poured in. Asterisk. And they saw everything, the badge, the ledger, the blood, the lies. Asterisk. And something shifted in the air. Asterisk. Like a weight that had pressed against their throats for years was finally pulled away. Asterisk. Later, Elias would stand before the circuit judge with the papers in hand. Asterisk. And Ashridge mine would be shut down. But not that night. That night. He carried May in his arms as snow fell on warm ground. Asterisk. That night, Lucy pressed her face against May's cheek, whispering lullabies to keep her breathing steady. That night, Elias knelt in the frozen field behind the chapel and lit the match. Not for fire, but for goodbye. He burned the drawing. Not out of anger, but released. The girl in the drawing with the flower and sun. She was safe now. They all were. Weeks passed. May healed slowly, then disappeared, left only a note behind, folded and tucked under Lucy's doll. Tell her I never forgot her song. Keep her safe. Burn everything else. Elias did. He never tried to find her. But every morning, Lucy rode beside him as they patrolled the new trail, handing out water to the children of the town, helping plant new trees by the ruined fence. He taught her to ride. She taught him to sing. And in the stillness of the frontier, something broken began to mend. Not by force, not by law, but by choice. If this story echoed something in your heart, if you've ever had to protect someone you love while carrying wounds no one saw, tell your story below, because healing doesn't always come from justice. Sometimes it comes from who stays when the fire's gone, and who chooses to keep going anyway.